So today we're going to talk a little bit about the developments of the Seth Rich case, and then a little bit about Comey's memo, otherwise known as Memogate. Rod Wheeler, the private investigator that was looking into Seth Rich's assassination, or robbery, however you want to look at it, a little bit more in depth, and he was technically researching on behalf of the family, even though they directly did not hire him. The strange thing was, within a day, only Fox News was reporting on it, oddly enough, and then conservative outlets like Heat Street and Daily Caller, PJ Media, outlets like that. And then suddenly the family comes forward and said, "We did not hire this man," which was odd to me, I thought. Anyway, wouldn't the family at least be open to an investigation if they don't have anything to hide? With regards to the Russian connection too, Russia-Trump, if there's no problem, then why does it matter being investigated? Even though some of us are skeptical upon the people who might or might not be conducting said investigation, finding things that aren't really there, if you catch my drift. So it wasn't a big leap in a lot of people's imagination to believe that if Seth Rich had been killed, if there has been a truth to all of the supposed deaths that have been linked to the Hillary Clinton Foundation and many groups that are linked to George Soros and John Podesta, then it wasn't too much of a leap to believe that they had contacted Seth Rich's family and said, "Hey, we told you not to look into this." In fact, yesterday's clip of Rod Wheeler on Hannity, he said this exactly.
Because someone, a high-ranking official at the DNC, check this out, a high-ranking official at the DNC, when I called the police department, they got that information and called the Rich family wanting to know why was I snooping around.
I hate being this much in the dark. I hate needing to rely on an anonymous source, but even with Comey, which we'll get into in a little bit, we're still dealing with an anonymous source. Which means that both sides are sort of chasing the dragon, so to speak. This is what Rod Wheeler said 2 days ago, a day before he was on Hannity.
The police department nor the FBI has been forthcoming. They haven't been cooperating at all. I believe that the answer to solving his death lies on that computer, which I believe is either at the police department or either at the FBI. I've been told both.
But you have sources at the FBI saying that there is information
For
that
sure.
could link Seth Rich to WikiLeaks?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's confirmed.
Well, now Wheeler is walking that statement back. It is not confirmed, apparently, even though he seemed rather confident in that last clip. Apparently, he claims that he was told by Fox, a reporter at Fox, to say what he said. From the CNN article, Wheeler claims, "I only got that information from the reporter at Fox News." Asked about a quote attributed to him in the Fox News story in which he said the investigation up to this point shows that there was some degree of email exchange between Seth Rich and WikiLeaks. Wheeler said that he was referring to information that had already been reported on in the media. A Fox News spokesperson did not respond to a request for comment by the time of publication. Earlier Tuesday, Brad Bauman, a spokesman for the Rich family, released a statement in which he said that the family had seen no evidence to suggest Seth Rich had been in contact with WikiLeaks. Bauman told CNN the outlets that had run with the story had shown over and over again that they are willing to lie and manipulate the facts to further their own political end. It's funny, they say the same thing about you. I think it's important for everyone at Fox News to be careful with this information and how the story breaks, because using the legacy of a murder victim in such an overtly political way is morally reprehensible. So who is the spokesman for the Rich family? It's a fellow named Brad Bauman, former executive director of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, meaning he worked very closely with the Democrats. He worked as an online content and special project manager for the Democratic National Committee, among other jobs as well, one of them being a regional field director for Obama for America. There are a few other small things that kind of indulge this theory quite a bit, one being that his name fits perfectly in the documents referring to the WikiLeaks leaker, as well as an email from John Podesta from about a year and a half before Seth Rich was murdered, talking about having to take care of somebody who was a leaker, make an example out of them, is what I believe the exact word was. Another thing that has made a lot of people rather curious is that within an hour of the Seth Rich developments being made public, gaining traction, the Washington Post posted an article talking about Trump supposedly leaking classified information to a Russian foreign minister and ambassador. And that's led to a whole different story, seeming to a lot of people almost as if it was a distraction. So let's go ahead and listen to what Rod Wheeler has to say about anonymous sources, and that will project us into talking about Memogate, or James Comey.
There was a federal investigator that was involved on the inside of the case, a person that's very credible. And I'll tell you, let me just say this, Sean, I don't like to suggest things without saying the person's name, but I can't say the person's name because that person would be thrown under the bus, and I can't do that. But this person, we checked him out. We have to check him out. Very credible. He said he laid eyes on the computer and he laid eyes on the case file, and he came across very credible.
Unfortunately for people like myself, I can't just take that on face value. I need a little bit more in order to say, okay, this is what happened, even though I think it is fairly likely. What makes me even more curious is the fact that he, within a day, walked that back entirely, especially with the spokesperson of the Rich family having direct ties to the Democratic Party. And since we're talking about anonymous sources, so keep that in mind, this isn't completely verified, but a person on 4chan, on Poll, had posted this, claiming to be a surgeon who worked when Seth Rich came through. He had 3 total gunshot wounds, entry, exit, and entry. He was taken to the OR emergency where we performed an X-lab and found a small injury to segment 3 of the liver, which was packed in several small bowel injuries, pretty common for gunshots to the back exiting the abdomen, which we resected 12 centimeters of bowel and left him in discontinuity. Didn't hook everything back up with the intent of performing a washout in the morning. He did not have any major vascular injuries otherwise. I've seen dozens of worse cases than this which survived, and nothing about his injuries suggested to me that he would have sustained a fatal wound. In the meantime, he was transferred to the ICU and transferred 2 units of blood when his post-surgery crit came back at 20. He was stable and not on any pressors, and it seemed pretty routine. About 8 hours after he arrived, we were swarmed by LEOs, law enforcement officials, and pretty much everyone except the attending and a few nurses were kicked out of the ICU, disallowing visiting hours, which isn't routine apparently. It was weird as hell. At turnover that morning, we were instructed not to round on the VIP that came in last night. That's exactly what the attending said, and no one except for me and another resident had any idea who he was talking about. No one here was allowed to see Seth except for my attending when he died. No code was called. I rounded on patients literally next door, but was physically blocked from checking in on him. I've never seen anything like it before, and while I can't say 100% that he was allowed to die, I don't understand why he was treated like that. Take it how you may, Poll. I'm just one low-level doc. Something is fishy, though. That's for sure. Speaking of anonymous sources, here's a clip from CNN that I found rather amusing.
2 former officials knowledgeable of the situation confirmed to CNN the main points of the story. 2 former officials. Tell you what, come out, name those people, then we'll have something to talk about.
1, we protect sources. 2, it's not just CNN. It's Washington Post, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, CNN,
Who?
ABC,
Yeah, but who
NBC.
are the sources?
Carl.
Who are the sources? Oh, because they're hiding behind this anonymity.
Oh,
and that's what we're seeing.
Please, do not even start with me that you're just going to attack sources.
Okay, so
That
what
is
about, so are you saying
ridiculous.
McMaster is lying?
I'm not saying McMaster is
Are you?
lying.
Well, he didn't really answer the question.
He didn't answer
He
the
said
question.
nothing inappropriate
He
was
said,
shared.
no, that's his opinion.
That would be,
But that's his opinion.
That-
You cannot say, you cannot attack,
Yeah.
do not attack the stellar reporters of CNN.
Okay.
That's right. How dare you attack the stellar reporters at CNN? Do you know how much trouble they had to go through to get that award-winning piece about Trump having 2 scoops of ice cream? So in all seriousness, James Comey is a clown. He's an ego freak. He's doing all of this just to either get back at Trump or get into the news or both. Just consider the fact that everyone left, right, and center hated Comey over the last year. Just his conduct, the bullshittery, oh, well, you can commit high crimes of treason. You just you have to make sure you're not intending to commit a crime. Yeah, try to bring that one up next time you get caught speeding on the highway. And here is Comey saying under oath on May 8th, 2017, that Trump did not order him to shut down the investigation, but said it was his opinion that they shouldn't waste any more resources on it, which is entirely different. Giving somebody your opinion is legal. However, ordering somebody to shut down the investigation is not. And that's the main distinction here. The New York Times even reported Comey memo says Trump asked him to end Flynn investigation. There is a big difference. And this is amusing because the New York Times is infamous for almost mirroring identically articles that are in the Huffington Post, which is, of course, overwhelmingly liberal. I find it interesting that these accusations of Russian interference and also Comey just being like, oh, I showed everyone this memo of Donald Trump asking me to not look into Michael Flynn, which he does have the right to voice his opinion on the matter. Everyone there does. And in fact, one of the things I was reading is that this happens all the time. It's not even uncommon. So what the fuck is the issue? It leads me to believe that this whole thing is a gigantic distraction. I can't help but shake the feeling that we're being fed infinite lines of bullshit. Every time we come across a kernel of truth, some asshole walks over and dumps a whole bag of sand on it. As far as Trump leaking classified information to Russians, look, I'll believe it when there's actual evidence and enough to go off of. I can't trust anybody's word at this point. I mean, hell, this anonymous poll user has the exact same credibility as anyone on any of the mainstream networks, aside from maybe a handful. So that's really all I've got. But if you've made it this far, this is a bit of a long video, but if you've made it this far, I have a video to show you at the end. It's not related, it's just for amusement. Like I might have mentioned in a previous video earlier today, I'm going to try to put something kind of funny at the end of the video to encourage people to try to make it to the end. This clip here is of Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky is sort of a founding father of cultural anthropology and linguistics, but with regards to politics, he's a sort of moron. Let's go ahead and take a look at this clip. It's fantastic.
You called the Republican Party the most dangerous organization on earth.
In human history. There has never, it's an outrageous statement, and when I said it, I said, look, this is a very outrageous statement, but is it true? But you're rating them worse than the Kim Jong-un of North Korea or ISIS, who are very... Is ISIS dedicated to trying to destroy the prospects for organized human existence?
Is that bad, the Republican
What
Party?
does it mean to say, not only we're not doing anything about climate change, but we're trying to accelerate the race to the precipice?
And you don't entertain the possibility that they may be genuine in their belief that this is...
Doesn't matter whether they genuinely believe it or not. But if the consequence of that is, let's use more fossil fuels, let's refuse to subsidize developing countries, if that's the consequence, that's extremely dangerous.
So basically, the Republican Party is the most dangerous organization in the history of human civilization because they're not doing enough about climate change. Does Noam Chomsky seriously think that, as the example was provided, ISIS or North Korea, do you think that they have big plans on trying to make a sustainable living environment for the next hundreds of thousands of years? So what these people do, and what they seemingly always do, is they condemn any sort of dissent as being stupid, uneducated, or racist. So I know I said I was going to end the video with that, but I'm actually going to end the video with this little gem. Enjoy.
Trump, when he came out with his campaign, he came out as the anti-Obama. It has fascist overtones, if not straight up fascism. I feel like the Republican Party has turned into a white nationalist party. I think when people are uneducated and they don't they're not really reading into the bigger issue.
With all due respect, Dookie is one hell of an album, but you're a sellout piece of shit. And how many years did you spend in university, BJ Armstrong? None. So don't pretend that you're educated any more than any of the other fucking voters out there because you are a monkey.